You know, we're just talking over the break, and Larry's like, yeah, I'm hanging out with Allen Ginsberg, and that yada. You know, it's just like this amazing story. You know, these are the stories that Larry just, you know, they're just throwaway stories for Larry. You know.
Yeah.
Here's another one.
It's like pocket lint.
Bam.
There it is.
Well, the funny way into that story is when my son was in like 6th grade, and we're moved to the Midwest, and he has some friends. Maybe they were in 7th or 8th grade by then, actually. But anyway, they weren't like high school driving cars. They were before that. But one of his friends was really advanced, interested in philosophy and serious questions. And so he was reading Ginsberg on the road, you know, like he was reading Kerouac or something.
Yeah.
And so my son, who was not that cutting edge kind of thinking about those kind of things, but was more laid back, said, oh yeah, Dad had, you know, Ginsberg to us. I remember reading and stuff, and he came and read, and it was part of the poetry thing. And so Phil, who ended up doing doctoral work in philosophy, he says, well, I don't think so. You know, like, so Matt went and got this family kind of album and opens it up, and it says, you know, the beat tonight is at, you know, the Phoenix. Alan's reading, you know, Hal and, you know, whatever it was, and stuff. And so Phil's like, oh, you know, this means you've got to respect your father. You know, I mean, this is like, so he's reading down there like, you know, Gary Snyder, you know, like, and Robert Bly, and then there's all these. But we did these poetry thing because we hosted the hospitality, had the space, you know, and so where were these poets if they were in San Francisco, Berkeley, and Santa Cruz? Like, we were right in between. We were like an hour, like, hey, come on a Tuesday night. So we had the big band at the Fairmont, you know, on their night off, the big band, you know, like you're talking these. So we had these big bands that were just amazing, but on their night off, we had the best high school musicians that would come and sit in, and you could play. I mean, you played with these great musicians because we were. I mean, we weren't a private club that, you know, had to be 21 or older, and we did poetry readings in the prisons. We did, you know, open mic kind of thing and all that, but and then we did the same thing with the music with you know, George Winston and those Wyndham Hill, but there was the Santa Cruz had one of the first non-smoking jazz venues, the Columbus Society. It was in Santa Cruz. So we were connected with Columbus. So you had these great jazz people that would come, and they'd obviously play in San Francisco, Berkeley. And so we were like right on the thing, come and play with. But we made it an intergenerational thing that was different. And it was like, yeah.
So this is a place called the Phoenix.
Yeah, so let's back up and figure out how we got to this point.
Real briefly.
Really briefly.
Oh, the Phoenix. Okay, this is funny. Okay, so basically, I'm working for Crossroads Espresso, and say it's 1983, and I'm selling espresso machines all over, you know, the Bay Area.
So you've worked at Logos.
And Peter James Coffee. That was in '83. People left United Coffee and went to, so it was the first independent thing. So I'm selling these espresso machines, and my desire is I want to open up a bookstore coffee house.
Bookstore coffee
Yeah.
house.
So one of my accounts I go on this lead, and it's in San Jose. I come in this building, and the Federation of Christian Ministries is a bunch of the Priests for Free Ministry, Society of Priests for, these are when all the priests were like Vatican II. They were leaving, they were getting married, they were bailing in the church. And so the Federation of Christian Ministries was based in San Jose, and so they wanted a place for their Orbis books and, you know, radical gospel kind of books.
So this is where Orbis was based, or where?
No, Orbis, no.
Orbis is in...
No, Orbis is... No, the Orbis is in New Jersey, I think. Yeah. But basically, the West Coast version, you know the Grail here? The Grail, okay, women's movement. They had the Grail in San Jose was a workers' movement, women's cooperative and stuff. So the Grail was one of the partners in our bookstore, in our coffee house. But so basically, I come in this place and it's a sales call, and there's this guy who wants to do this coffee house. And he's a Latino guy, social activist and stuff, who doesn't get coffee, he doesn't really care about it. And I said, I'm not doing anything with the coffee unless you really care about it. And so I sell him this machine or this contract and stuff, and the deal falls through, and the developer says, you know, the deal is dead, but do you know anybody that wants to do a coffee house bookstore thing? And I'm like, yeah, I thought about it. So I came and told my wife, and she said, I want you to do it.
Really?
Yeah. And I said, well, you know, such a thing like, you know, money and, you know, kind of thing. Like, you know about books, you love coffee, you got these connections and all these other, you know. So,
It's
you
like
know,
she loves you.
yeah, you aren't getting any younger. It's like, you know, any younger. This is like I mean, I'm 30 years old or something. You know, it's like, I mean, what are you talking, lady? Like, this because you aren't always 19 either. You know, so anyway, so it happens that there's this big sculpture, marble water fountain that has about a 12-foot high phoenix, brass, copper, and all this water. It looks like fire and stuff. So I'm like, wow, I always loved that image, you know. And so that would be great. Phoenix, books, and espresso cafe. Gonna do it.
Okay.
So I formed this partnership with the Federation of Christian Men, a bunch of these worker priests, and they're all older, and they have money and their investments and stuff. I don't have any money. So they said, well, it's a 50-50 nonprofit partnership. So you raise $75,000 or $100,000, whatever it was. We'll kick in our other part and we'll open up.
Okay.
So of course I get a nice walnut espresso bar, set it up, start serving espresso with Thanksgiving and Ely, and start bringing in the people, you know, like, and there are these social gospel radical Orbis priests and stuff, and so they're coming up, hey, we'll put 3,000 in, so we get like 22 limited partners, you know, this limited partnership nonprofit, finally get the money and have the meetings, the other guy's gonna chunk it in, we're gonna open, and they say, oh, he's done such a good grassroots work, it's so important, you know, buy in and this and that, so why don't you raise the rest of the money? We aren't gonna, and so crash and burn. I mean, it's like the books were being shipped, and it was just death. And so 1983, Matt, my son's like 3 years old, and I'm babysitting, he's on this fountain, you know, they're like, and I'm crying like, this is the end, that's my dream, and it's over. And so he's like wiping tears in my eyes, Daddy, I love you, you know, and what's wrong? And so I said, monies, you know, fucking monies, you know, it's not monies, it's not about like vision or love or passion or, and stuff. Yep. So, I mean, you have some 3-year-olds, you've had those like that, and so all of a sudden, I mean, I'm lost in my thing, like, God, I'm so mad, this is over, and it's crashing, and how am I going to ever get out of this? And so I look around, all of a sudden, oh, I am really going to be in bad shape. I've lost my son. Where did he go? I'm thinking, you know, you think you're in trouble, like, when you got to call the wife and it's the only son. Like, what did you do with him? And he's down in like First Street in San Jose. Then there's a bunch of like hookers out there, drug dealers. It's like, yeah, I had a bad day, but you know, I can't find that. You know, so basically, I think he's gone back to the art gallery, because he used to kind of hang out there some and talk to Russell. So I come around the side of this fountain, this big Phoenix thing, and Matt, he's got his little overalls and his white little turtleneck on, and he says, I've got all the shiny ones. And he's picking out these, you know, and so I just went like, God, you know, like, why can't you just be a child of God? Why can't you have faith like this 3-year-old? And so I start calling up my friends and say, here's the story. I was like mad as hell, and I ain't gonna take it anymore, and this is total BS and this and that, but I decided to go this other route. So I raised the rest of the money, and And then we had this, well, we had Pete Seeger for our grand opening, the Peace Center in Cincinnati, in San Jose. So we had Pete Seeger and these people, of course, are coming out like, "Whoa, man, this is the way a coffee house is supposed to be," and then so the mayor of Cincinnati, this is crazy, like the mayor of Cincinnati,
San Jose.
Actually, it was funny. The developer, the urban planner guy from Cincinnati, became the urban planner. This is way before I knew this, of San Jose. So they were spending hundreds of millions of dollars to redo San Jose as a major downtown. They were building a Fairmont. So we were like right, and so the mayor owned this property, the old property in town, and he had a like Pacific Fish and this comedy club. It was like big time, 10,000 square foot pieces of like really high, like active clubs. There was one piece of property that was a Planned Parenthood that he wanted to try something to do. So he comes over, and this is like the 10th largest city in the country probably at the time, and he's a nice Catholic boy, Irish boy, and family in McInnery. And he comes over, he used to come over for coffee, and at our place. But why don't you move over to, San Pedro Square? That's where all the action's going to be, and the Fairmont, and the sports arenas, and the museum of the computers, all this kind of stuff's got to happen. And I said, well, because I can hardly afford to be here, like why would I? Yeah, but the vision and the coffee house, the kind of people that are coming, stuff, you could really use a bigger place and all that kind of stuff. And I go like, yeah, there's no problem with that, but like I don't, like why don't you give me some money? Right?
Right.
Like you got all this money, all this cash flow, and like so like well,
this is the mayor of San Jose.
The mayor.
Okay.
The mayor, yeah. And you're connected, right? And so you want to have these poets over there. You want to have this cool thing like San Jose's, gonna be really cool. Well, then let's see some money. So he said, well, we don't ever do tenant improvements. I said, yeah, well, you're talking, Pacific Fish or these guys that come in and they're selling drugs and everything else. They got all kinds of money. Like, you shouldn't have to put any money in. But so anyway, he decided, fine. He came back and said, what if we came up with this much money? Would you consider moving? And can you do it in like 90 days if we have a build out? So he funded the tenant improvements.
Okay.
And so we, the 4-group Marzocco time and a 2-group on a cart, and a walnut cart.
Baller.
Yeah, it was like time. And so when that launched, we had 8,000 square feet, and we had, the Poetry Center, the jazz, the culture forums, the stuff. We had a venue that we could.
And this was the launch of the Phoenix.
That was the launch of Phoenix. So that was from 1983 to 90.
Okay.
Phoenix. So we're up to 90.
We're up to 90.
Nice.
Wow.
Big jump.
It's like warp's good. This is good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how did you get from San Jose and Phoenix to Cincinnati?
Well, here, this is the first crash and burn.
Okay.
We had a guy, actually one of our limited partners, who was one of the half-dozen founders of AutoCAD.
Okay.
Who made a lot of money, who was a musician, but made a lot of money. And he really had an interest in taking and having a place like the Phoenix,
okay,
to have friends, a party place and all that. So he basically tried to buy out limited partners and he had a lot of money. And tried to take me out as a general partner and a bunch of these. And so I had a year where I had to defend that, and I won, but it was just devastating. So I sold the Phoenix to another guy who was supposed to continue it, and then I was just devastated. It was like my love of doing all this, to have somebody come in the middle of this thing just because they had money, and and here you had all these partners that were, like the Grailville, you aren't going to buy the Grail out, like, you aren't going to buy. Yeah. So. Some
people can't even.
Yeah. So so basically, I had a I mean, Lisa would know more, but I had a year of like total depression, like I was out of it.
And this is like 1989, 90?
90,
Okay.
okay? And it was like, I seriously thought like, I may not recover. I mean, I don't know how much I'm gonna live that close to the edge, trust people. And so I, you know, painted our house and did some cooking. But I mean, I was out of circulation. And so part of that time, I said, this is in 91, so my son was 11,
Okay.
91. And I said, I always wanted to take a train trip before they rip this trains up. You know, like, let's go on a train trip. So I worked this deal out with his school to study, you know, transportation, Native American Indians, geography, scientists and that. So we went all over the country on Amtrak and went to museums. History museums, science museums, and took pictures and did a log and stuff, and we became really close. And actually, Paul Katzev, after we took that trip, and he heard about it, he was talking about, oh, that's so cool, I want to do something like that. I said, well, just do it. And he's all into ballparks, right?
Right.
So he took his son on to a bunch of ballparks.
Around the country.
Yeah. But anyway, so we, part of the thing, I mean, we went to New Orleans and, you know, and went to the old, where the bookstore that, you know, I managed down in the French Quarter, and we went to, anyway, we went all over. And when we got back, and one of the things, we went to Cincinnati. So we stayed with,
Lisa's parents
were here, yeah. So we went to Cincinnati and went to museums and forgot what else we did. But anyway, part of it, we went to Marymount, just because it was a historic, you know, like something I heard, like Ray Oldenburg was talking about it or something. So I thought, he was like, wow, this is cool. So part of it, we went to visit, and Matt came, and they set up the appointment with these students, and we went to a football game, and he got up in the you know, the scorekeeping thing, and he was like a guest. And we went to class in Marymount, and he came in and was like, what's this? I mean, we stayed at the Marymount Inn, you know, and it was like a whole experience. But we went to this class, and here they had this like 12 kids at this table. He's like, what's this room? You know, instead of like 35 or, he goes, this is a class. You got, you know, 3 and stuff. And so he loved Marymount. He could go down and have, I mean, like soup at the old Dilly Deli in the park. And so he was like, wow, why don't we move there, you know? So that was a highlight. So when we came back, Lisa, I think, realized that we needed to like focus on, you know, family at that and get out of this. Everybody I met like, hey, what's your next thing you're gonna do? You know, like, you know, Silicon Valley and stuff. And I'm like, you guys are like, this is becoming so I mean, a lot of the coffee houses were just changing over to, it was becoming so just entrepreneurial. You know, Palo Alto used to be these small coffee houses where you had, you know, Joan Baez. You had people there like in venues not much larger than this that were playing these. And then, you know, it was this, and so Lisa said, you know, hey, what about like moving back to Cincinnati? And so we said, well, let's take it anyway. So we were totally like, hey, you know, we're still young, we can do something stupid. So we bought an RV and said, we'll just take the summer, and we got an Achilles offshore boat, put it on the top, espresso machine, generator.
Essentials.
A bunch of wine, a bunch of wine, and we headed out. And so we went across the Golden Gate Bridge. First stop we came to was the Bohemian Highway. And so they had the Gathering of the Vibes, the Gathering of the Vibes Festival. That's why it's our house wine here. So the Gathering of the Vibes, you know, the organic, the whole people. So we're like, well, we're saying goodbye to that. We're going to go to the Midwest. So we went, just journeyed across the country up into Canada and did a bunch of stuff, and came to Cincinnati and moved to Marymount, and decided that you know, Lisa would get a job, like, you know, because she'd transfer the bar, and I would do something.
And she's a lawyer.
She's a lawyer, yeah.
Yeah.